Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Chaos in the VALORANT world just before the World Championship. Rostermania already starting to go down with many of these top teams, and some big rumours emerging as to what especially 100 Thieves might well be doing over the coming days, but also the replay system now arriving into the game. Massive drama on some of the limitations of the system. Many of the pro players and former pro players, the likes of TenZ, not especially happy with this implementation from Riot Games. When TenZ says something, usually there is a reaction, but very much into your thoughts and comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Let's start here because Gen.G played TSM. This was the grand finals of the Challengers Stage 3. Gen.G, of course, the favourites, but TSM also, as we know, very good in Challengers right now, and they got the victory. This was very impressive. Now, Gen.G, it was a fascinating end to the series because when it got to the Ascent in the end, they were clearly tilted very hard. And, yeah, Kane was tilted out of his mind. Like, this guy was just behind the bucket running it down. So clearly things went a bit out of their control as the series went on, and it is interesting, right? And it's understandable from a mentality perspective that Gen.G might not be the strongest mentally, although they might still be the strongest team. But TSM, they get the dub when it matters, and Seven had a great series. Timotino as well, he's been playing really well lately. Very impressive indeed, and this is the best TSM have looked for a very long time. After losing the Sunset, they won their map pick Haven 13-9, and obviously this is a pretty frustrating one for Gen.G, the way that they lost this map. Then the Lotus was pretty back and forth and they lost, and then the Ascent, TSM just ran away with it. So look, they're both going to be in Ascension, they've both got a chance to win it, but it's big for TSM because there has been a big rumour lately that if TSM don't win Ascension, I mean, look at their run they've been on recently, they beat basically everyone, and you know, it's very impressive. So if TSM don't win Ascension though, they might just pull out entirely. So they're going to need to win it. Both of the teams are going to be there to give themselves a chance, but congrats TSM, are your winners of the Stage 3 Challenges in North America. Global KD leaders, these are the top men after, well, during Stage 2 really. Of course, many of these guys not going to be there at the World Championship. Some of them, such as Something, indeed will be. Now let's talk about some roster drama though, because Daznarth says, we'll start grinding ranked. Next month maybe I'll get considered. He tweets out this, your Pro City application. We regret to inform you that your application has not been accepted. You'll be eligible to reapply in a month or so, and we can invite you again at that time. Now there's a pretty funny reply here from Boostio, who says, you are the reason that Pro City was created. So yeah, it's difficult to get into Pro City. The content creators will keep trying. The pro players will keep saying, like, you know, can we keep these guys out? We want to keep it, you know, only the top level players or whatever, right? You know how it's going to go, and that there's discussion of whether that's fair or not. But yeah, pretty funny because Boostio had not tweeted anything in a long time, and then he returns to Twitter just to say this and to roast Daznarth. I thought was pretty funny because the last thing he tweeted was on the 19th of July. So he came back just to drop this one, and maybe with 100 Thieves doing some roster drama behind the scenes, there is something to be said about that. Redgar is looking to be back. So he says, I basically spent 2025 grinding, refining my mechanics, deepening my strategic knowledge. I'm more driven than ever to return to the professional stage. So very notable player historically in Redgar, and well, looks like he's looking to come back. He's got this whole graphic that he's prepared for it as well, if you guys want to get in touch, if you've got a team that potentially needs a player. Now, outside of Redgar, there's also drama in the Americas. So TeX does this tweet. This is the common one that the Valorant players do when someone, maybe them, is getting dropped, and it's the old, it's a terrible day for rain one. So maybe TeX gone from Lev. Like, I think TeX is a good player with a high ceiling. This year, inconsistent pretty much. So, like, if Lev move on, I think TeX can still get a good opportunity elsewhere, but maybe it's understandable that Lev are just going to kind of clear house or make a lot of changes. They've made some questionable decisions this season. Maybe that's going to continue this off-season as well, but potentially TeX out of there. I guess we'll see what they decide to do. The big drama, though, was 100 Thieves and what they're cooking up for the new season, because, again, 100T, for the 100T fans out there, it's been the same old story, hasn't it, really, right? Where they show some promise, but it's just not good enough. And on the international stage, they didn't make it, right? Okay, they made it for the World Cup, but it still wasn't really great. They brought in Kess instead of Boostio. They thought it was worth a try. Did it make them better? Maybe for a couple of matches, yes, and then things kind of went back to normal. Xander's calling didn't seem to, quite end up being good enough. There's all been talk about Xander, hasn't there, right? Because in Tier 2, the guy's a monster, hasn't really translated that too well into Tier 1 historically. But look, 100T have got to do something with their team, but what are they going to do? Now, should Cryo go anywhere? I would suggest probably not. You know, I think there's an argument that 100 Thieves could consider building around Cryo. One of the big questions, of course, is around Asuna. Has been for a long time, and that probably isn't going to change. But Asuna tweets yesterday, 100T fans, how are you feeling? And he says the I got one more in me, the Vince Carter meme. So people are, you know, seemingly implying, okay, well, he's going to be back for another season, right? That's how it's going to go. Maybe, but also maybe not. You always got to take what Asuna says with a bit of a pinch of salt, and it's very early days. It's not like 100 Thieves will have made up their mind yet. I mean, the World Championship has not even started. There's plenty of players that could be available after Champions, right? So it's something that they will be thinking about for sure. But Asuna implies anyway that, first of all, something is happening at 100 Thieves, and secondly, that he may well be staying around. Now, should Asuna stay? Possibly, possibly not. I'm pretty indifferent to this in general. I think the community is pretty split on it as well. Half of the community will say, well, Asuna is obviously a good player. Clearly there's a lot of talent there. He's a pretty selfless player, does what it takes to try and win, but, you know, the problem is they don't win, which is an issue. The other side of it is like, look, Asuna is probably better than he's recently shown. It's just not working at 100T for whatever reason. It probably makes sense for them to go their separate ways. Is Asuna the problem? You know, some would say yes, but just because he's been on this organization for a long time and in recent years they've won absolutely nothing. I think, personally, it would be in the best interest of both parties to probably part ways. I think another year of Asuna on 100 Thieves, it's just going to cause issue. If they start out next season with Asuna and they don't win anything immediately, it's just already going to cause problems. A lot of the fans are going to be frustrated about it. You know, nothing against Asuna individually. It just might make sense to both parties at this point. But he implies anyway that's not the case, and I'm sure people are going to have their opinions on that. Let's talk, though, about the replay system and the drama that is, well, arriving right now in Valorant in the last 24 hours. So, look, this is Overpass in Counter-Strike, and this is not a Valve-made map. This is not a map that the developers themselves have made, but because in Counter-Strike you can create open source community maps, this is a feature here that this map maker created to show people how to use some of the utility. And Pansy says, I'm out here in the dirt trying to find a fade reveal lineup on TikTok videos. Please, right, give us nice things. At least either give us stuff like this that's a bit better than what Valorant has, or at least give Valorant players the ability to design stuff like this. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is around the replay system. This has been, as we know, a big conversation point in the Valorant scene for 5 years, right? Since the game came out. Can we get a demo viewer? Can we get a replay system? And it's finally here, right? Here we go. Looking around the replay modes, and it seems to work. I'm sure there are going to be bugs. I'm sure there are going to be some glitches, but it's pretty clean. The UI looks pretty nice, and 5 years on, it's finally in the game. The problem is that it's far from complete in the sense of what a lot of these players would actually like to see. Of course, like, things aren't going to be perfect in terms of the viewer, right? So, for example, this kill here it wouldn't look like that in real life when it happened in real time, but it's still pretty good, actually, compared to, some other replay viewers. You can kind of tell that when, this shot comes through, like, the bullet is fired, like, there, and it doesn't quite hit the character, but you see what I'm saying? It's pretty solid. The problem comes as follows. You can only see your own replays. So you can see your own matches in ranked, in Premier, whatever, but not in custom games. And there was discussion that, like, oh, surely they're going to add this, right? Like, it's a no-brainer, right? But as it stands, this appears to be a deliberate decision by Riot. So you can watch your own games, and presumably in those games you can watch anyone else's perspective that you would like to watch, and view from third-person cam and all this. But one of the primary reasons why people like demo viewers, there's a couple of reasons, really. First of all, watching yourself to get VODs and to make highlights, right? Which is fair enough, which you can do. The second option is to view better players to see how you can improve. And in CS, for example, you can just go on and watch the VODs from the majors and see what every team was doing in every single micro nanosecond of the game. That's perfectly fine. Or to catch potential cheaters, right? Which is another big thing why this can be valuable. But no custom games and no abilities to see anyone else's VODs or replays. Riot says their intention is to not allow you to view other players' matches, and that this is not a feature they intend to add. Now look, if there's a certain level of community backlash, they could change their mind on this. But you know, I was expecting the replay viewer to allow us to, like, the VCT matches potentially would be on there and be visible. It's like, look, it's probably not easy to do, but they've had 5 years, right, to do it. So surely it is doable, right? Let's be real. Especially going to all the effort to build a replay viewer and make it nowhere near as impactful as it could be, no ability to replay any of your custom games. So it doesn't really change anything for the pros, right? Like the pros and the commentators and, well, let's say the video editors that want to create content, but also especially the players and the coaches who are trying to watch like VOD back and stuff. No custom games is allowed. And it seems like that's a decision from Riot to kind of prevent this. As Dapper says, you're telling me we've waited 5 years for a replay and you can't even watch the pro games on it. Maybe this is a good deliberate decision, because if there's a replay viewer for pro games, then you can go back and just see what every single team is doing in terms of their pre-round protocol every single time. Maybe it's sensible to not allow that to be the case, but it's not like, you know, in CS or other games, it's, you know, you can see what teams are doing. I understand maybe some of the restrictions on that, but it just feels like you're waiting all this time to bring a replay viewer out, and it doesn't really give you what we thought it would give us. So as Slasher says, Riot taken 5 years to implement replays, but you can't download anyone else's VOD except your own. It's peak game development. No replays of VCT, pro player POVs, things people really want. And you could do this stuff in Quake and CS in 2001. Chet says it's pretty disappointing. And then we get the take from TenZ, which of course is the big one, right? Like, doesn't really matter what anyone else says. If TenZ says something about it, Riot will look at it, right? It's what they do, because TenZ is that guy. If the replay system has no plans of allowing viewing of other people's games, what's even the point? Won't be able to analyze high-level play to actually learn or VOD review as a team. Can't even make a frag movie without account sharing. Feels like they are listening but not understanding what the community has been asking for. So that's TenZ's perspective. What do you guys think about it in the comments below? Is the drama in the reaction to this slightly overblown, or is it fair and understandable that certainly many of the pros, many of the former pros, many of the coaches are not especially happy with the way that things have gone recently? So it's here, right? But it's not what it could be, and that probably shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.